Hey there everyone, this is William with CommanderCast.com, here doing an update for the Alpha build with Avacyn, Guardian Angel. This time we're adding Mirage, and Mirage is the first real block to feel like a modern style set from the modern era of Magic. And we got some real big ones. The first one I'm going to go ahead and go over right here is this might be one of the ones that draw your eye, the Mana Crypt, which replaces the Mana Vault in this list. So here's the thing. Mana Crypt was originally a promo printed with the Sacrifices something book, and that was actually printed and released in 1995. I want to say around April-ish. And Mirage came out around October 1996, so this is actually well overdue for the list, and I wish I had known about that sooner. I'll have to mark that down for the future Alpha build videos and projects I want to do. So the Mana Crypt, it's long overdue, long over here, and it's very nice. Let's just take out that Mana Crypt, which, even though I liked it, I wasn't a fan of, it taking so much to untap. Basically used it as a ritual, and it's gone. The Mana Crypt has the potential to actually just kill us, but with the advent of stuff like Spirit Link and the Ivory Tower, hopefully it will help us, power out a lot more stuff a lot more faster, and help us get into the game a lot sooner. The other big one that you might be noticing right now is, in fact, the Enlightened Tutor. This was in Mirage as an uncommon. 1 mana instant. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card. Reveal that card. Put it on top of your library. Shuffle your library, then put it on top. It wouldn't be very good if you put it on top, then shuffled. So this is just a very powerful piece of redundancy that we desperately needed for this deck. It's going to help us grab the other half of our land tax Ivory Tower combo. We'll have to be careful because we don't want to land tax and Enlightened Tutor when we're just going to, get lands. In fact, if we have the land tax already out, what we'll probably do is we'll set a stopgap at upkeep so we can go ahead, draw our lands, then use Enlightened Tutor, put the tower on top, and that's going to start getting us a lot of life. We'll also be able to grab our Library of Lang. That way, we can go ahead and keep all those lands, and we can start accruing a lot more life. We can start getting that combo off. Whew. So those are the two real big highlights of this set. But you know what? 17, with including the Mana Crypt that I just now, like 5 minutes ago, put into the deck after someone brought it up. 17 new cards came into this deck, which means 17 older cards ended up getting cut out. I'm going to go over that as briefly as I can. We cut out Horn of Deafening, that 4-mana artifact that had pay to, negate the damage from an unblocked creature. And Jug Voices, the 4-mana Anthem effect. But Knowledge Hero was, unfortunately, just not pulling her weight. She hung around for quite a while, but we have other ways to protect Avacyn now. Elder Landworm, with a 7-drop, got replaced by an actual dragon with flying. The fact that Elder Worm couldn't actually attack and didn't have a flying presence sucked a lot. We cut out Bazaar, Baghdad, and Safe Haven. I just stopped being a fan of the land drops that weren't doing a whole lot. The Bazaar, Baghdad has some cool synergy with the land tax. You can go ahead and start digging through our deck. But now that we have stuff like the Enlightened Tutor, now that we're going to be going into more quality card effects, I don't think it's going to be as necessary. I'd rather use those spell slots for actual spells rather than lands that will eat up our lantern, especially when I don't know what the presence of our ramp is, even after this upgrade. Safe Haven was just annoying to play online. I'm sure it's fine, but when we're dealing with online, it just eats so much of our time, and I don't want to be doing that. Which this deck has to be crafted with our medium intact, which is probably why we won't be seeing too many graph cards when we go into green. Shield Bearer, Errant Duty, and Knights of Thorn were all more banning creatures. I was so happy to have them when they were, there with Avacyn. But when they weren't with Avacyn, they were just piddling. And part of that's just the creature quality that we have. We did get some nice creatures with this set. But the banning cards were really only there to help protect Avacyn on defense and help her take down cards on defense. We went ahead and we kept in the Keldorian Sky Captain because that one flies and that's going to help her on offense, and the Akashian Phalanx because that one actually does have a decent sized toughness by themselves. The other ones, though, they just weren't pulling their weight. The Feral's Mantle, the enchantment that could replace the damage you deal to a player to a creature, it was cool to kind of snipe things, but with this set, we get a swelth of actual removal, so we don't have to go with the super jank ones like that. Cut Preacher, Cut Pit Trap. Those were just cards that... Pit Trap was actually alright, but we were able to go for more efficient removal than basically a 4-mana Rattlesnake. Preacher, anytime I put Preacher down, it was cool to think about how I would be able to get stuff, but he never got anything. Then we've also got Reinforcements. Jeweled Amulet was one of the later cuts. I liked it quite a bit, but especially now that we have Mana Crypt available, there's no real reason to want to use a Mana Crypt, as well as some of the other ones. Because the Jeweled Amulet is great for that real quick start, which will be great for something like Kalia. But for a deck that wants to go longer, like Avacyn, we don't want to go super long, because the decks that can just keep accruing engines win over us in that battle. But we want to slow the game down enough so that we can, kind of get into it. So Jeweled Amulet doesn't really help us there. It hurts our tempo a lot. Mana Vault, like I said, ended up getting cut. We have some better rocks, I think, for our deck now. Diamond Valley, again, it's going to go into the maybe list. It's one of those cards that, right now it's not a good fit. Maybe later we will be. And the last one I want to cut was the Soul Grail. It's a 3-mana rock, so it helps us get Avacyn out a turn earlier. But the rocks that we have now will help her get down earlier. And they also help with the get from 2 to 4 faster. A lot of our more powerful effects are at 4, including the Kismet. And one of the problems that we were having was the Kismet wasn't coming down fast enough. So the best way for us to do that isn't to play Mana Rocks at 3, it's to play them at 2. The Basalt Monolith is still here because it provides so much more mana. And kind of rewards us for playing A. Keep our mana open to allow for more things to actually do. So now we can go ahead and actually talk about the stuff that made it into the deck, aside from the big highlights of Mana Crypt and Enlightened Tutor. The first one I want to go ahead and point out here is the Crystal Vein, which by itself taps for a colorless, but you can sack it to add 2 colorless to your mana pool. And, it fills that kind of Mana Crypt ritual of get rid of a resource for basically forever in order to just, for that instance where we need just 1 or 2 more mana. And, it's going to be better than the Ursatrons because it's going to be able to make that 1 pop just a little more consistently. Alright then, going over to our 2-drops. This is where we get a lot of our stuff end up coming from the 2 to 4 range. So first one, we got Favorable Destiny. It's a 2-mana aura that says the enchanted creature gets +1/+2 as long as it's white. So as long as we're not putting on a robot, it'll be fine. It'll turn Avacyn into a 6/6. Enchanted creature has Shroud as long as you control another creature. This is going to be interesting because we empty our creature presence without necessarily upping our creatures. As you can see up here, we still only have 15 creatures. What is that? So with the Favorable Destiny, the idea here is that Avacyn sees a lot of bounce and a lot of removal. A lot of the times, from what I've been seeing, Avacyn does a good job of walling people off, but then they have ways to, kind of cramp her style. A lot of what I've been seeing has been, then at the end of my turn, she'll get bounced or killed or something like that. The Favorable Destiny just says, hey, hands off, as long as I have another creature. It's going to be interesting to see how often we can keep those other creatures out. At its worst, it's going to turn her into a 6/6, which isn't that great. At its best, it is kind of like a pseudo Lightning Greaves. I say pseudo because we don't have the benefit of the free equip to give haste and anything like that. And this probably would just get replaced with Lightning Greaves in a modern era as soon as we hit Mirrodin, which that's not going to be for another few blocks. But you work with what you can. Now we've got Illumination, which is a really cool piece of tech. For double white, you have an instant that says counter target artifact or enchantment. Its controller gains life equal to its converted mana cost. This is one of those reactionary gotcha bitch type effects. We were joking how every white deck is playing Mana Tithe and how, anytime a white player says, oh, hold on, go response, you can go Mana Tithe when someone has already tapped out. I'd actually consider Mana Tithe because people do tend to tap out for the really big spells like their Genesis Wave and all that. Illumination, though, does help us preserve a lot of our enchantment and artifact answers. It's basically prevention removal. As long as we make sure to keep our mana open, we can keep them from dropping the Mirage Wake, from dropping all these really powerful Cage Sun effects where they just ramp out of control faster than we can actually deal with them. their draw effects, their stacks effects. Oh god, being able to counter the Winter Orb is actually great. It's just fantastic, because with the Winter Orb, we might tap out and, lose a whole turn, just get time walked from that Winter Orb if we weren't keeping up removal. But at least with the Illumination, we can keep that mana open and just be rid of it. Just keep our eyes out of it. Ward of Lights is another way to protect Avacyn. It's a 2-mana aura. You can cast it as though it had flash, but if you could cast it anytime that you... But if you have to use that ability, you sacrifice it at the end of the turn. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a color, and a chain creature has protection from the chosen color, and the effect doesn't remove Ward of Lights. So if you need to give Avacyn protection from white, you can go ahead and give her protection from white, and Ward of Lights will keep itself from falling off, which is fantastic. It's kind of like... It's another instant way shield to protect Avacyn, and it's something that we can do on other creatures too. So if our opponent has a creature that we need them to have, we can go ahead and play that, basically protect them. Because remember, Avacyn doesn't give protection, she just prevents damage. I wish it had been protection from color. She would have been really obnoxiously good if that had happened. But you work with what you can get. Ward of Lights will be a great... It's that pseudo counterspell magic that I talk about sometimes. Stuff like your Face Shield, your Apostle's Blessing. Stuff where they go, okay, cast my kill spell, it can't be countered because such and such effect, or maybe even the kill spell itself has that effect, like the Abrupt Decay. And you just go, okay, in response, give my card protection from that color. The game counters that spell instead. So, nice little pickup tech. Disempower. 2-mana instant, put target artifact or enchantment on top of its owner's library. Kind of like Unexpectedly Absent. You're still paying 2 mana either way. This one only works on artifacts and enchantments. So it's great to do in response to fetch lands. It's great when they go to do something, hoping for for an enchantment trigger or anything like that. You can kind of time walk them if they spent their whole turn playing that one card. And that's going to be an interesting idea to play around with, the idea of these pseudo time walk effects. Where they go, okay, play Mirage's Wake, pass turn, disempower. Okay, you just wasted your whole turn playing something. You have to take your turn over again. Marble Diamond is one of those mana rocks that I was talking about. So we have Mana Crypt and Marble Diamond pick up the slack for Jeweled Amulet and Mana Crypt. And potentially the Soul Grail. I think we actually went down one rock because we got rid of that Soul Grail. But the quality definitely went up. The Marble Diamond aims play tapped, but it makes white. It's a staple white rock. There's absolutely no reason why a white deck shouldn't be playing this, unless you just have an aversion to mana rocks, or you have cards in your deck that hate mana rocks. Just a nice little, easy, simple effect. And we have the Commander 2013 art, not the 2013, the 2014 art, just because I like that. That's a nice, beautiful diamond. Then finally, we've got Classic Pacifism. I could have gone with any of the arts. Actually, let me go ahead and pull them up real quick. I'm pretty sure I own quite a bit of them, just from the different drafts that I've done. We've got the Cons Pacifism, the Classic Pacifism, and the Achroma Pacifism. I like the Achroma Pacifism quite a bit because it is Achroma. We don't have Achroma in here, but it'll be a nice send-off, or allusion to Achroma, to what could be coming. But this pacifism is so iconic and recognizable that it makes it easier for me to go, okay, this is pacifism, without having to scroll over it or at a glance. And remember, for the first time in his life, Grok felt a little warm and fuzzy inside. That was the original Mirage flavor text and art. You've also got the Cons one, where he says, if I fight, I might step on a butterfly, and that would be sad. But you know what, I'll actually leave it to you guys, which art you prefer. Whether I go with Achroma, Grok, or Krog, Mr. Butterfly Man. For now, I will be going with Grok, though. My personal preference would be for Achroma, but we'll be going for Grok, just for ease of play. Now, as for the card itself, enchanted creature can't attack or block. Relevant. This is going to be the first in our line of enchantment sweep removal. It's something that we can grab with a Lightning Tutor. It's something that we can use to keep really huge things from just wrecking our day. I thought about including a card in this from this set called Blinding Lights. It's a 3-mana sorcery that says tap all non-white creatures. But this is actually just better because it's removal. It's just straight removal. In the case of removing an attacker or a blocker from the equation. So we also have Afterlife, which is another piece of removal. 3 mana is about the most I want to spend for our instant speed removal. But this one is pretty decent. It's destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Its controller puts a 1/1 white spirit creature token onto the flying onto the battlefield. So you replace their creature with a 1/1 little piddly flyer, but you just got rid of their big thing. I want a lot of our removal to be in the 1 to 2 slots, so stuff like Condemn and Path to Exile when we get those. But Afterlife is not a bad one, especially for this point in time where we want instant speed removal. Our only other options for instant speed removal are going to be Reprisal and Swords to Plowshares, and that's really it. I'm talking purely about creature removal. We have some sorcery speed creature removal with the Pacifism, with the Serried Bestiary, and we have plenty of removal for artifacts and enchantments with our disenchant effects. Hell, even Exile. Okay, so we have like 4 ways to deal with creatures at instant speed. Exile is actually just Exile's a lot better than Afterlife because 1, it's going to exile, and 2, it's going to buff up our life. Afterlife, though, is just good enough to make it into the list. It's one of those ones that we'll swap out. Typically, the 3 slot is going to be where we get a lot of Exile effects because the Path to Exile Swords to Plowshares are just way too good. This is also where we're going to put a lot more of these sorcery type effects, like the Oblivion Rings, the enchantment, get rid of any permanent type effects. So definitely not where we want to be long term with our instant speed, but we do have 4 ways to deal with creatures at instant speed now, which is a lot better than where we were just a few sets ago when all we had was Swords to Plowshares, and that was frustrating. So a big addition to this deck is going to be Sacred Mesa. It's a 3-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice the enchantment unless you sacrifice a Pegasus. And wouldn't you know it, for 2 mana, you can put a 1/1 white Pegasus token with flying onto the battlefield. So ideally, you're waiting until around turn 5 to actually play this so that you can make your Pegasus at instant speed. Because you definitely don't want to make 2 mana on your turn. And it's just a huge, huge mana sink with an actual relevant effect. We're going to be making 1/1 flyers, but those 1/1 flyers become 2/2s when we put out a Crusade. It might be one reason that we wanted to keep out the Angelic Voice, but we had so many other stuff coming in at the 4 slot that the Angelic Voice was just became an easy cut for us. The interesting part is going to be if we can make enough mana to really make enough tokens, because we're going to be paying. This basically has an upkeep cost of 2 that you can pay at any time. But mana sinks give us a lot of virtual card advantage. You know, just making a small army of tokens and then having those tokens act as blockers, having them run in and snipe stuff. It's not enough to include stuff like Phyrexian Vault, which was in Mirage. It's a 3-mana artifact. You can pay 2, tap, and sack it, a creature, to draw a card. We do need card advantage, but I think the virtual card advantage from Sacred Mesa is enough that we don't need to put in the Phyrexian Vault. Going over to our 4-drops, we have Null Chamber, which is basically a Nevermore. As Null Chamber enters the battlefield, you and an opponent each name a card other than a basic land card. The named cards can't be played. So your first thought is, well, okay, I'll just go ahead and name your commander. Well, then I'll go ahead and name your commander. Or we'll both go ahead and team up and name other people's commanders and or combo pieces. We've seen before cards that just get bounced and played over and over again. And the Null Chamber kind of stops that. But the strongest bit is going to be keeping people off of their commanders. Nevermore is a very powerful effect. And we can't keep up with some of the stupid power that a lot of these commanders can get. Stuff like Azami. Omnath is a huge one. If we can keep Omnath from hitting the board, period, that saves us a lot of grief and trouble. And the experienced commanders are also great targets for this. Then we have Sidar Jabari! Our first legendary... Well, no, I can't say our first because she's actually a little later. But we do have Sidar Jabari, who's a legendary human knight. Like I said, I want to try out as many of the legendary creatures as I can. There's 3 that we can play in Mirage. 2 of them ended up getting in. So what does Jabari do? He's a 2/2 for 4, which is piddling. It's not a great stat to be at. We've had 2/2s before. But he has flanking, so any creature that blocks him without flanking gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever Sidar Jabari attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. He would be fantastic in the banning deck. This is a guy where you actually want to load him up with a bunch of banning guys, you want to be aggressive, and you want to attack. If we wanted to put more banning in, if we wanted banning to be our theme, if you want a banning deck in mono white commander, this guy is fantastic because you can go ahead, just block out one of the bigger things, one of the more annoying things, like maybe move a chump blocker out of the way. But then he'll attack with his banning crew, and they'll get in there. My hope is that we can go ahead and attack in with him and Avacyn. Avacyn can protect him. He can get the really big flyers out of the way. So he encourages attacking. Avacyn's back on defense. Avacyn can protect her with her ability. Hopefully, these two will work out well. Then we have Sunweb. For 4 mana, we get a wall. Now, the Elder Dragon was kind of a defender wall too, but this one comes out 3 turns earlier, and it has similar stat builds. I think it's actually a little better. It's a 5/6 flyer, can't block creatures power 2 or less. So 1, it flies, so it blocks flyers. Now, it sucks that it can't block creatures power 2 or less, but we're going to find out just how relevant that is. This was one of the ones that I really kind of had to scrape, nitpick some cards out in order to get this one in. Because 1, I wanted to keep a creature count high. 2, we've actually gotten some decent results with Wall Swords, and this is basically a Wall Swords with upgrade stats and a restriction on blocking. So by having 2 of these walls out, we will be able to defend ourselves a little bit better. So, you've met Jabari. Here's Jabari's influence on people. It's a 5 mana instant. You can cast it only after combat. Gain control of target non-artifact, non-black creature that attacked you this turn, and put a -1/-0 counter on it. So you make him slightly weaker, but then you get to take the thing. Right now, our creatures are not that high quality. So why not borrow someone else's? People are swinging at us anyway. We're making people angry. And you know what? This gives me a reason to want to make people angry. And I enjoy making people angry. To a point. And then we have the first legendary creature we came across. Rashida Scalebane. We've come across legendary creatures before. And I was very mad that we could not play them on Moto. Moto needs to get those legends back online. But until then, there's Rashida Scalebane. She's a 5 mana 3/4 legendary human soldier. Destroy target attacking or blocking dragon. It can't be regenerated, and you gain life equal to its power. Now, you might be saying, William, that's really awfully niche. And other than that, she's a 3/4 for 5. Sarah Angel's a 4/4 for 5, flying, and vigilance. I know you like narrow stuff, but come on. Well, here's the thing. This actually covers a weakness for us. Stuff like that Steel Hellkite. The Steel Hellkite is one that we see every now and then. And this is actually just a counter for that. If that dragon comes at us, we can't use Avacyn to block it. We can make Sacred Mesa Pegasus tokens now, but that's so temporary a solution. But no, Scalebane comes down, she's going to slay us some dragons. Especially now that we have that Dragons of Tarkir set going on. The presence of dragons might be a lot higher than what it's definitely not as high as when the set first came out, but the presence of dragons is definitely much more prevalent. So even though she maybe get cut in the future, I am very, very happy to have Rashida Scalebane in this deck, just to have more legendary creature presence. Sidari and Rashida. Now there was a third legendary creature, Zabura the Golden Wing or something like that. It's a 3/3 flyer for 5. It's a griffin. He's just an anthem for other griffins, which makes him a decent limited legendary creature, which there was a griffin sub-theme in white. So if you get a chance to do a flashback draft of Mirage, that's definitely something that you can build around. But it's not going to be for us. We don't have any griffins in here that I'm aware of, at all. The only other card that we have in here, because we do still have our Seraph, is Pearl Dragon. Pearl Dragon is a 4/4 flyer for 6. That's about, I wouldn't say that's standard for dragons. Standards for dragons are typically 5/5s for 6. But he does have flying, and he does have 2 mana. He gets a toughness. The fact that he does flying makes him a lot better than that Elder Dragon Worm. And it's okay. It's not going to be our best bet. In fact, I know something that we're going to get next set in Visions that's instantly going to replace him as far as a threat goes. It could replace Rashida, but I feel like we might be better replacing the Pearl Dragon, because I want stats that are just a little bit bigger than a 4/4. 4/4 for 5 is fine because she comes with the added vigilance. A 4/4 for 6 is just a little. It's just a little too weak for my taste. If that had maintained the scale of, hey, this is kind of like a Shivan Dragon, it'd be fine, but it's not, so it won't be. And that's really what the deck looks like now. Can you believe it? Like, I know I've said, hey, this is finally starting to look like a real deck before, but 17 new cards, that's almost a fifth of the deck. So the Emperor has a brand new groove. I was very close to cutting Meekstone at this point, very close to looking at other stuff like the Fellwar Stone. The Fellwar Stone was actually a cut over the Soul Grail originally, but when I looked at the curve, I realized that the Fellwar Stone had more value as a 2-mana rock that could, half the time make our color, half the time it's just going to be colorless, versus the Soul Grail, which would make white mana guaranteed, but comes down a turn later and doesn't help us get our Kismet out or our Moats or anything like that. So there is that. Plus, Mana Crypt, Enlightened Tutor. Enlightened Tutor can even grab a Mana Crypt. I'm excited to see how this deck goes out. So, you know what? That's enough talking about what we just did to the deck. Let's actually go ahead and see it in action. Stay tuned.